Daily Show with CJ Nasello on RiverBender.com.
Heading across the nation.
10:12, right back here on this Monday in downtown Alton. It's the 19th day of June in the heart of the Riverbend. On the line now, the chair of the New Illinois Movement, G.H. Merritt. Good morning and happy Monday.
Good morning, CJ, and thanks for having me on.
No, thank you for your time. I really appreciate it. I know that you're busy with the organization and really appreciate your insights right here in downtown Alton this morning. If you could, right off the bat, fill us in on what the New Illinois Movement is, how it was created, and what your guys' goals are.
Oh, okay. Well, I'll try not to drone on for too long here. Our movement is about following the process provided in the U.S. Constitution to pursue the formation of a new state separate from the state of Illinois. People often say that we're trying to throw Chicago out of Illinois. We're not trying to do that. We're trying to throw ourselves out because the state of Illinois has a legacy of corruption that goes back a century. And the real important part of it is that outside of Cook County, you really don't have a Republican form of government. We're not talking Republican Party. We're talking small r, Republican form of government, which is government of the people, by the people, and for the people. And so we are a 501c4 educational organization with the mission of educating Illinoisans about their right to pursue this. And so you asked how it got started. We started about 5 years ago. Myself and a guy named Jeff, we both had the same situation where we would have picked up and left Illinois, but we had families here, his business, his farm, his kids' schools. It was all here. And a lot of times, a lot of people are flooding out of Illinois. And sometimes people say, well, if you don't like it, just leave. Well, if you've got like 95-year-old parents that you're taking care of, you can't be like Tom Joad and the Grapes of Wrath and throw them in the back of the pickup truck. And so not everyone can leave. Some people have century farms. And so for me, my husband and I were saying, okay, what state are we going to move to? Because we sure ain't staying here. And but my parents were elderly and we were caring for them. And then after they died, it was like, my dad built my house. I don't want to sell my house. And it was just this kind of awareness that the corrupt politicians of Illinois are the ones that are really pushing people out of the state. And I just decided I'm not going to get pushed out of the state. I'm going to stay here and fight for my home. And so that's how it got started. That's what it's about.
Absolutely. And, I think it's great that, you decided to take a stand and nobody can fault that no matter what side of the argument they're on. And I think it shows a lot to really step up to the plate and garner an organization. And with that, what's some of the strides you're trying to make? Have any representatives or elected officials reached out to get some insights on what your guys' plans are?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, right around the time that New Illinois got started, Representative Brad Halbrook had filed a resolution with the General Assembly about this. And so because the process, it isn't like you pass a law. It isn't like you need 2/3 of the legislature. It is a resolution that requires only a majority, and it doesn't require the signature of the governor. It's not subject to the Illinois courts, but that's what's required before it can go on to Congress. And so Brad has been working on this for a long time, and we've had numerous legislators that have signed on as co-sponsors. It's not in the legislature right now. With this new legislature, they reverted back to the House rules that were under Mike Madigan, where if the speaker didn't like what you were doing, the the bill or resolution would never see the light of day. So it's kind of pointless at this moment. But we work through county committees, and our county committees do pay visits to their local legislators and tell them about what we're doing, and give them all the information that they might need, and we try to persuade them to support us. And we have been successful. There are quite a few people in the legislature that do support us. What I'm really excited about is that because I'd be lying to you if I said there was as many Democrats as Republicans supporting this. But really, it's not a party thing. It's a regional thing. It's major urban area versus rural, small town, and suburban Illinois. And so it just so happens that there's more people that lean to the red side in this part of the state than lean to the blue side. And so, but what we're selling is something, it doesn't matter what party you're a part of, because nobody benefits if they don't have representative government. Nobody benefits if they have a corrupt government, and nobody's going to benefit when Illinois goes over that financial cliff that it's headed towards. So it's not a hard sell in many ways, but we're real excited that one of the Democrat members of the state legislature has said he'd be willing to have the conversation, and so he suggested that we have a forum with him, and so we're hoping that we can schedule it for this summer, and we're excited about that.
Absolutely, and with all the especially the history of it seems like the discrepancies between downstate and up past Springfield. I understand completely the movement, and I totally get the idea behind it. Now, is your idea to be just to separate downstate and create a whole new state, or is it going to be in collaboration with what we're seeing with the greater northern Idaho movement and being a part of like a Missouri or one of those sister states?
Well, here's the problem with that. It's something that can work for Oregon because, it's more complicated. When you want to start a new state, you have to get the consent of the legislature in that state as well as Congress. When you're trying to move the border, like Oregon's trying to do, they need the consent of 2 state legislatures. And of course, Idaho has already been favorable toward it. Their House voted to approve it. It'll be more difficult getting Oregon to approve it. But here's the difference between the states that want to move their state lines and us. Illinois, despite what our governor says, is Moody's estimates we're close to $315 billion in debt. And so our state government, I think they use rosy expectations to come up with their numbers, but they're not right. And so regardless of what the amount of that massive debt is, if, say, Missouri decided, hey, yeah, I'd like to take Madison County and have them be a part of our state, well, along with Madison County would come a proportional amount of that debt. And so, for instance, Indiana is pretty financially healthy. They have a $4 billion surplus. If they grabbed a couple counties off of the eastern edge of Illinois, they'd wipe out their surplus and they'd get a massive debt. So all of the states around us are doing far better financially. According to the Mercatus Center, every year that I've looked at their report, Illinois is dead last in financial health. And so none of those other states in their right minds would ever take a part of Illinois.
Right. Well, and the reason I ask you that is just because, already, we're kind of having some texts on the text line, and I wanted to address them, but also wanted to get your feedback on it. And I do know, just from the study that came out from SIU that, they were saying that downstate, 96 of the counties get back $1.70 on each dollar. The southernmost get about $2.88 back for each dollar, while these Chicago suburbs receive about 58% or 58 cents per dollar back. And this is just a text being sent to me. What are your thoughts on somebody that's bringing that argument to the table with, Chicago giving us more for our dollar back than what we give them?
Well, we have been addressing Dr. Jackson's study for ever since it came out, and it's got some real issues. First of all, I think sometimes people make the assumption that we're talking about far southern Illinois being its own state. Far southern Illinois by itself wouldn't have an adequate population or GDP to be a state, but the Paul Simon study is greatly flawed. In fact, we have a rebuttal to it on our website. A person who is a nationally known financial expert helped us to write that rebuttal. It uses data from the Legislative Research Unit, and it was data that had warnings all over it saying, this is incomplete, don't use it to draw any conclusions. And even though in the study they give lip service to that, the fact is they did indeed draw conclusions, and the conclusions were false. They talk about, the 19 counties downstate get 280 something back on each dollar. They don't list what those counties are. There's more than 19 counties in that region. And but also they're making the assumption that we're just talking about far southern Illinois. The fact is I live in Lake County, which is one of the collar counties up on the Wisconsin state line. We have county committees in every collar county. There are people even on the fringe of Cook County that have tried to escape by referendum in the past. The referendum won, but the cost of litigation with Cook County was so high they couldn't pursue it. So we have county committees all over the state. And so where I live, according to the Paul Simon numbers, we get 53 cents back on each dollar. But you don't hear people up in Illinois, up in Lake County saying, doggone it, I don't want my money going to, Jackson County or Alexander County. They complain about the fact that we have one of the highest tax burdens in the country. We have high debt. We have corrupt politicians, and nobody's even mentioning that, And so, that study is unreliable. And I say that, despite Dr. Jackson being an emeritus professor from SIU, if you read the study, you will see that it isn't really an economic study, even though that's what people get the impression. It's a political analysis. And it throws in stuff like, well, these Trumpsters, it's like, that's not what we are. We're a nonpartisan organization. And so it's something that I don't know if the guy being at SIU for many years is frustrated with being in an island of blue and a sea of red. I really don't know. I can just tell you that it is a severely flawed study.
Well, and that's a great point, and I'm glad that you brought that up and you had some information to counteract that, because that was something that I had the link sent to me multiple times, and anyone that knows this show knows that I don't, take sides. I just like to highlight organizations like yourself, and I think it's great to highlight that. Now, before I let you go, I have a couple of more questions, if it's okay.
Sure.
We were just talking about, the ideology of this being a political party, or, an extension arm of, a Republican Party, of a conservative party, or any party in general. And, with that being said, I noticed a couple of times you talk about, the one, Democrat in the sea of red. Is something like that language, is that something that you guys do just to use as geological references? Because you're right. I mean, if you looked at our last presidential election, we had 4 counties that turned red, and I didn't vote in it. Because my vote really doesn't matter in Illinois downstate. I think we all know that. But, I think it's something to highlight too.
Well, I just made that up about the
right.
A blue island in a sea of red, because that's where the university is, and you see that in a lot of counties where there's a major university. particularly if you have, students that aren't really residents of that county. They may come from Chicago or they may come from out of state, and if they're voting there, it kind of skews things.
That's true.
But anyway, I'm kind of losing my
Well, no,
train of thought
I
here.
mean, you're absolutely right. I mean, you are right about that. And now, with that being said, what are the next steps for the organization going forward? It seems like you're getting some support on both sides of the aisle here a little bit. And with that, is there a way that the public can, sign a petition, can join your movement, or find out more information on New
Sure,
Illinois?
Sure. Yeah, and I did remember something I wanted to mention when it comes to the red-blue divide, because again, it's an urban versus rural divide. And so if you're a Democrat in Southern Illinois, you're not really getting a representative government either. But for myself, I don't belong to any political party. The last party I belonged to was over 10 years ago. I belonged to the Green Party, and I belonged to the Green Party because I grow organic vegetables, okay? So yeah, it's seriously, it's not an arm of the Republicans.
Right. No, and I didn't mean to make you feel. I definitely wasn't
No.
steering you that way. It's just I want to
No.
make sure we hit all the points.
Yeah, people make that assumption, but here's what we also, like on hot button issues, we don't take a position, except the only position we've taken on any issue has been on universal school choice. But we believe that separated from Chicago and urban Cook County, the people of the state of New Illinois will decide what kind of government they want. They will decide where they come down on these issues. We trust the people to get a government that is going to represent them. And I should throw in this also, a lot of this, the corruption goes way farther back, but in 1964, there was a Supreme Court ruling called Reynolds v. Sims. And what that did was it took away any geographic basis for the state legislature. Prior to that, you did have more of a balance between the Chicago and downstate. You don't have that anymore. Everett Dirksen, our U.S. Senator at the time, said that he warned that Reynolds v. Sims was going to cause any state that had a sizable city, it would cause all the power in state government to be absorbed into that city. And that's what happened. And that's why downstate has no voice. It happened in California. They've got the New California movement. It happened in Oregon. It happened in Colorado. It happened in New York. It happened in Virginia. These are all states that have state split movements going on now. And it's because Reynolds v. Sims, it's a real issue. It's a process issue. It's not necessarily an ideology issue.
Without a doubt. And I really appreciate your time and really just to fill us in on this because, I think that, 9 times out of 10, and I don't know if you'll agree with me on this, is whenever there's an idea or a movement such as this, the news and the pundits and the talking heads of the world are the first to kind of throw shade on it. Or I'm not like that. I think that we should get the information, and I really appreciate you answering some of those questions that we had. Now, I do have one more for you. Let's just say in a perfect world, the governor, House Democrats, House Republicans come together and they say, well, there needs to be a new way to, balance our political quota, whether it's, from, redrawing the districts, whether it's, making sure there's more of a discretion in that disparity between North and Southern Illinois. If that is fixed, would you guys still be calling for a new arm of our New Illinois, or would you be happy with those changes if they fit the mold of what your constituents in that organization are feeling?
That isn't going to happen. And the reason it's not going to happen is because if Reynolds v. Sims were overturned, or that portion that had to do with the forming of legislative districts, if that were overturned, there would be no need for New Illinois. You could just, like how people always say, just fight harder and elect good people. That doesn't work in Illinois because the absorption of power by the city has given them free rein to gerrymander I mean, I don't know if you've seen District 13, the congressional district.
Yes, we have. I know it pretty well.
It's like, okay, what community does that district represent? The answer is no community. It represents a power grab by the political machine. And so they've been able to use this to just absorb more and more power through gerrymandering. And now there's a supermajority, and not to get political, but I'm trying to, just state the facts. You have a supermajority on one side of the aisle, but what I look at is where does that supermajority come from? And it comes from Chicago. And so it doesn't matter what their party is, it's from Chicago. You see these laws that have gotten passed, that firearms law that 90% of the sheriffs in the state said they weren't going to enforce it. You analyze who voted for it. Almost every single one of those votes came from Chicago. And so, I don't know, I'm probably going down a rabbit hole.
Oh, no, you're fine. I mean, you're making some great points, and I wish we could talk longer on this because this is an issue that so many for years have thought about and actually, made an argument for. And it takes a lot, and I really mean this, to come on the show. We had never met before, but to talk about the platform and to trust the show enough and me enough to come on and highlight it, it really means a lot to me. Now, if anyone out there is interested, how can they find out more information on New Illinois?
Well, they can go on our website. It's www.newillinoisstate.org. Another thing, so you had asked how people can get involved. We operate through county committees. We have a county committee in Madison County. So that's one thing they could do. They could come to one of our events that are coming up in Southern Illinois, and probably the closest to you is Redbud, but we'll be in Murfreesboro, Centralia, and Golconda also. And the other thing, too, there's a whole separate organization besides New Illinois, and it's called Illinois Separation. And they are the group that has been working to put an advisory referendum on the ballots, on county ballots. And it's been on 27 county ballots so far. And in each case, it's won by a landslide. In fact, in Madison County, you're in Madison County, right?
Yes.
Yeah. In Madison County, last go around, they had their referendum on the ballots in 2 townships in northeastern Madison County, but they'd like to have it be on the whole county's ballot. And so that's something. They collect signatures. Sometimes they go to the county boards, and the county board will just agree to put it on the ballot. But it's like a 2-pronged attack. We're doing the organizational part of achieving the constitutional process. What they're doing is gathering extremely valuable data. And so when we're in the Illinois General Assembly at a hearing and the chairman says, well, how do I know the people in the rest of Illinois really want something like this? Well, hey, lady, they just had this referendum that passed by a landslide. Don't you listen to the news? Anyway.
Well, and you're right. And, like I said, I'm kind of indifferent on this. I want to see how things develop, but I do appreciate your time. And I know so many, and I've made the argument before of doing something similar, but the best of luck in this. I hope it works out. And if you have any updates to fill us all in Madison County, we'd be more than happy to have you back on.
Well, great. Thanks a lot. I really appreciate you wanting to talk about this.
No problem. And I appreciate your time as well.
Thanks.
At 10:36, we'll take a quick break. Renegade Artsy up next on our daily show.